A chalice lit in our midst is a symbol of our liberal faith, a faith built on the foundations of freedom, reason, and welcome, a faith sustained by acts of kindness and justice, a faith that envisions a world flourishing with equality for all people, a faith that demands the living out of goodness, a faith that requires thoughtfulness, a faith of wholeness. The tiny flame that we are about to light is the symbol of all of that spark of goodness in each and every one of us. Please join me in our chalice lighting words. Oops. Which are in your order of service, maybe? It's in the order of service. See, you were holding out on me. All right, so you all speak and I'll light some fires. We gather this hour
as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
See, you barely even need me here. You've got this. All right. For our Time for All Ages today, I wanted to share some ponderings. So this week, I found myself sitting at my desk with this random thought: am I a full cup of tea? Now, you might be thinking that I was asking if I was dealing with a full deck, and that's not what I meant. And so we're not going to take a vote on that, on whether or not I'm working with a full deck. But am I a full cup of tea? So some of you are nodding wisely because you know that Buddhist tale about the master and the student. And the student is pouring tea for the master, and the master never says, "Thank you, that's enough." And so the student keeps pouring, and tea starts going everywhere. So I know you know that story, and I see that light in your eyes of, oh yes, that's what she means. She's definitely a full cup of tea. She's so full of herself. Now, in that tale, the point of the story is that in order to be filled, we must first present emptiness, which is a very Buddhist way of thinking and being in the world. That getting to that point of emptiness so you can receive. And I know sometimes, whether it's because of busyness or busyness, I'm a pretty full cup of tea. There's just not room for one more drop of anything. No insights, no nothing. So then I started thinking, well, how would I empty that? If I'm already starting with a full cup of tea, I am not starting with an empty cup. Well, my options are dump it out. Well, that seems wasteful. And if I'm talking about not literal tea, if I'm talking about all the things that I'm thinking about and being open to mystery, well, just kind of going, well, thanks very much, and dumping it out seems a little not grateful. So then I thought, well, I would just get more teacups. Just fill them up. Bring on more cups. And that seems a little bit not healthy. I'm very good at adding things to my life. And so this would probably be what I would do. I can keep learning new things. I'll say yes to 14 new projects. I have lots of teacups. And if I just am hoarding all those teacups and fill them all up, there's not a single one that is the right temperature to enjoy my cup of tea. So then I thought, well, what do I do every single week when we're here? And we have kind of a virtual tea party where we have all these cups of tea, all these possibilities, but it's not just for me alone. It's for us to enjoy together, for us to share together. And in my life, I don't just fill up like a pot of tea, because where's all the good choices in that? If anyone has spent any time with me in my office and has had a cup of tea, you know that there's this little box with like 12 different kinds of tea. So then the first thing you have to do when you come in to chat with me is decide, oh my, caffeine, not caffeine, chamomile, chai, Earl Grey. I don't really like Earl Grey. I just keep it for you all in case you like it. But there are lots of choices. And that's kind of what we do when we come together in community, is we all bring all our different flavors, all our different temperatures, because some people like a tepid cup of tea, some people like me like that first scald, and everything in between. And when we all come with all our flavors, all our beautiful teacups, all of our fancy ways of being together, we are enriched and we can relate more. And all of our cups go from full to empty, not because we toss it out, but because we enjoy the flavor with one another and we are enriched by one another. That's why we meet here on Sunday mornings. Just in case you woke up this morning and went, why do I do this again? It's about teacups. Everyone knows that. And so our children and youth are now going to go have their own cup of tea as they learn fabulous things. And so we are going to sing them out with a little ditty. Well, as Fran played earlier, you gotta have heart. And we gotta have faith. Like many Unitarian Universalist congregations across the country, we follow a thematic monthly curriculum called Soul Matters. Each month, the question is posed, what does it mean to be a people of blank? The blank is filled in with words like integrity, belonging, wisdom. This month, the theme is resilience. What does it mean to be a people of resilience? Throughout this month, we will be asking, and I hope answering, that question. Just how resilient are we? What tools do we have at our disposal to increase our resilience in an increasingly chaotic world? We are not born with resilience. We develop it, and almost always through adversity. Who needs resilience when things are great? Getting through difficult situations hones our resilience, and greater resilience gets us through difficult situations. This month, the authors of Soul Matters ask a really important question. When did we decide that resilience was a solo project? The prevailing cultural messages would have us think that it's all up to us as individuals. We talk about pulling oneself up by one's bootstraps, and that if at first we don't succeed, try again. You'll notice that the saying is not, if at first you don't succeed, go to church, gather your friends, take a break and reflect. But rather, try again. The unspoken judgment is that if you don't succeed on the first try, there's something fundamentally wrong or flawed in your process. And don't come out of your room until you get it right. So this month we're going to be a bit countercultural and describe and develop resilience that can be created and experienced in community, together. And to do that, we're going to need faith. I know. Faith is such a loaded word. Depending on your background and previous religious and spiritual experiences, you may be feeling comforted by the word, or you may be having an allergic reaction. So let me begin by saying what I don't mean when I'm using this word. I don't mean blind faith, where someone else's truth is accepted at face value as one's own. I don't mean faith as an opposite of reason. To me, faith is not the cosmic equivalent of because I said so. It's stopping questions in their tracks. I saw a definition recently that clarified the difference between faith and belief, and I think it might be useful for us this morning. We must here make a clear distinction between belief and faith, because in general practice, belief has come to mean a state of mind which is almost the opposite of faith. Belief, as I use the word here, is the insistence that the truth is what one would leaf or wish it to be. The believer will open his mind to the truth on the condition that it fits in with his preconceived ideas and wishes. Faith, on the other hand, is an unreserved opening of the mind to the truth, whatever it may turn out to be. Faith has no preconceptions. It is a plunge into the unknown. Belief clings, but faith lets go. In this sense of the word, faith is the essential virtue of science, and likewise of any religion that is not self-deception. Really wise words, really got me thinking. So between, faith, belief, clinging, letting go, and cups of tea, my week was filled with pondering. Faith is an unreserved opening of the mind to the truth, whatever it may turn out to be. In this case, faith is not blind or averse to evidence. It is more a stance, a gesture, a way of being in the world, an openness that includes the very real possibility that I might be wrong, and new evidence might require me to abandon a cherished belief to make room for a new truth. And although that is often a solitary endeavor, it can be done in the company of friends and strangers. We do it here every Sunday. We examine our assumptions, we hold them to the light of new insights, we hold them to the light of our own experiences, and then, hopefully, we are willing to be changed by that process. You see, faith and reason are not enemies. Faith and doubt are not opposites. Faith lives in the same apartment building as doubt. When Faith was out of town visiting her uncle at the hospital, doubt fed the cat and watered the asparagus fern. Faith is comfortable with doubt because she grew up with him. Their mothers are cousins. Faith is not dogmatic about her beliefs like some of her relatives. Her friends fear that Faith is a bit stupid. They whisper that she is naive and that she depends on doubt to protect her from the meanness of life. In fact, it is the other way around. It is Faith who protects doubt from cynicism. That's from J. Ruth Gendler's The Book of Qualities, where she examines all of these different words and personifies them, gives us an opportunity to experience these sort of lofty words in a different way. Faith is comfortable with doubt because she grew up with him. Faith is an unreserved opening of the mind to the truth, whatever it may turn out to be. Belief clings, but faith lets go. Even with all of that, it still feels like a pretty loaded concept. So I thought it would be very useful if we spent some time unpacking it, one letter at a time. F is for freedom. Freedom of thought and belief is foundational to who we are as liberal religionists. We sing about that kind of freedom. We even sing it in German. Die Gedanken sind frei, my thoughts freely flower. Die Gedanken sind frei, my thoughts give me power. The back of our gray hymnal holds 2 readings on this kind of freedom by giants of our faith. The 20th century James Luther Adams with I Call That Church Free, and the man who sort of stood between the 18th and 19th centuries, William Ellery Channing with The Free Mind. Adam writes, I call that church free, which enters into covenant with the ultimate source of existence, that sustaining and transforming power not made with human hands. I call that church free, which brings individuals into a caring, trusting fellowship that protects and nourishes their integrity and spiritual freedom. 150 years earlier, William Ellery Channing wrote, I call that mind free, which masters the senses and which recognizes its own reality and greatness. We've never had a problem with low self-esteem. He goes on to write, I call that mind free, which jealously guards its intellectual rights and powers, which does not content itself with a passive or hereditary faith. We are in no danger of being accused of accepting a hereditary faith. We are heretics, people who choose our own way. Sometimes all of that freedom can make us feel unrooted. And in our less than best moments, it can make us intolerant of anything we think smacks of conformity of belief. Kierkegaard described this anxious response as the dizziness of freedom. It can be difficult for people to come together in common purpose when it feels like what is most important to the individual might be subsumed in a larger vision, or heaven forbid, outvoted. Coming together in community means setting aside some of that freedom of I for the benefit of the freedom and shared ministry of we. A is for alignment, and it rises out of our commitment to our we, as we create and sustain relationships and discern a shared vision. It's part of the magic of the beloved community that as we align with our soul or our true self, we also grow in our capacity to be in healthy relationships with others. When I was thinking about what to use for A in faith, I almost chose affiliation. But I think alignment is a stronger value and aspiration. You can be affiliated with a group, even a church, without giving very much of yourself, without much risk in relationship. But aligning ourselves in accord to become a we is a more powerful relationship because of the risk involved. I'm reminded of Alice Blair Wesley's adaptation and interpretation of the Covenant of the Puritans, our spiritual forebears. This covenant was created in 1658, and it reads, though our knowledge is incomplete, our truth partial, and our love uneven, from our own experience and from the witness of our faith tradition, we believe that new light is ever waiting to break through individual hearts and minds to illumine the ways of humankind, that there is mutual strength in cooperation, and that the bonds of love keep open the gates of freedom. Therefore, we pledge to walk together in ways of truth and affection as best we know them now or may learn them in days to come, that we and our children might be fulfilled, and that we may speak to the world with words and actions of peace and goodwill. Now that is a covenant of aspiration. a dream of alignment that demonstrates how healthy and loving interpersonal relationships can have an impact in the wider world, as well as being personally fulfilling. Alignment is two-pronged. Alignment with our soul, and when I say that word, I mean our true self, our authenticity, our integrity, and alignment with the beloved community. Both types of alignment can be developed and exercised right here, together. This is possible when we are willing to risk our hearts and to be vulnerable, to be willing to engage in faith's unreserved opening to the truth, whatever it may turn out to be, when we're willing to let go. The next letter is I. I is for interdependence. You know, this is a word we toss around quite a bit, particularly since it is the essence of our seventh principle, to affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism, you will find our 7 principles in the front of the gray hymnal, just before the first song. And we also have brochures and information in the lobby that you can take home with you if you're curious about the other 6 principles. We affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. Do we even know what interdependent means? Can anyone define it without using any variation of the form of depend? I want to find out. I have the blue microphone, Chris. Interdependent. And you can't say depend, dependence, dependez-vous, any other variation of depend. Give it a try.
Connected.
Connected. Connected works.
Creatures that need each other to live.
Oh, so would that be symbiotic? Is that too, like, 7th grade biology class? I don't know.
I know
But
nothing about 7th grade biology.
interdependent. Okay, which way will I go? This way.
Woven.
Woven,
I have
very.
a sweater that's coming unraveled, my favorite sweater, and it's like I wanted to repair it, and I pulled one strand and it starts to come apart, so I know what interdependence is for yarn.
And that is a cry for help also for those of you who knit. Please see Bob after the service. Any other connection, woven?
Kind of in the same vein that our actions have consequences for others.
I don't like that one. I'd like to have that one stricken from the record, please, because it's so true. Oh, I'm going all the way to the back. I'll be back in a minute, y'all. Dun, dun, dun. I'm still here. No yelling. No yelling allowed.
Reliance. We rely on one another.
Which is a kind of mutuality that puts responsibility on all the parties to be reliable, right? We can't just rely on someone. It's like the theater game, the trust exercise, fall back into someone's arms. Yeah, I've had that experience too many times.
Building bridges.
Building bridges. What lovely, lovely ways of thinking about this. Thank you. And the rest of you are still thinking, and that's good too. So for me, because I like to sing, the way that I'm able to think about interdependence actually comes from one of the songs in our gray hymnal. And it, I think, solidifies all of the things you've talked about, that reliance and connection and mutuality and weavingness and all of that. And it's from you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. That's interdependence. At my house, we use that as a table grace, which grows that interdependence even wider than the people sitting around the table. Just in case you're looking for a singable table grace. So, interdependence is about establishing and sustaining reciprocity. It is a state of mutuality. All parties are, yes, dependent upon the other, and all parties support one another to the best of their ability. But you know, as beautiful as it sounds, and we get these images, interdependence can be pretty tricky. Some of us aren't very good at receiving. We prefer to be on the giving side of the equation, while others of us might be pretty adept at receiving, but may not always remember that our contributions are important. And this is just as true when we sit around a table in a committee or a team meeting and people are looking for our contributions to ideas, as it is when the offering plate is passed and we're looking for your contributions of gratitude. Our contributions to the beloved community, our we, come in many forms, and one size does not fit all. Every contribution is important. If you want to find ways to get into the flow of contributing, having a say, speaking up, being a part of all of that yumminess of interdependence in this beloved community, we have lots of ways to do that. So I'm going to ask anyone who is currently or has been on the board, currently has been on or chaired a committee or team or task force, and has ever brought food to a potluck. Raise your hands. Okay, look around. So if you're looking for a way to get involved, these people can help you out. They know how to do it. Okay. And you can also check the newsletter, because there are lots of things in there, so you can, start to flex those interdependence muscles. T is our next letter, and it stands for trust. In his essay on the free church, James Luther Adams wrote, "I call that church free, which brings individuals into a caring, trusting fellowship that protects and nourishes their integrity and spiritual freedom, that yearns to belong to the church universal. It is open to insight and conscience from every source. It bursts through rigid tradition, giving rise to new and living language, to new and broader fellowship." That sounds great, doesn't it? Who wouldn't want to be part of that kind of church? A caring and trusting fellowship. But trust is hard. It is earned, not given. And the trickiest part has to do with the obstacle of broken trust. Even if the break was with someone else other than the current players, even if that break in trust took place decades ago, it's still in the system. Because when trust has been broken, it can take generations to restore. So trust, like resilience, is something that must be built, bit by bit, piece by piece. And like alignment, trust requires reciprocity and vulnerability in relationships. Of course, if you've experienced a break in trust, you are unlikely to make yourself vulnerable again. I mean, once bitten, twice shy, right? The ego's response to broken trust is to put up a wall, dig a trench, and load up on the ammunition of silence. That response is not only contagious to others within the system, it is passed to the next generation unless some kind of remediation takes place. So if you've ever been mystified by someone's coldness or prickliness, it might be someone you hardly know, and you wonder, what did I ever do to them to deserve that treatment? Just realize that you probably haven't done anything to deserve that treatment. Someone else may have authored that. It may not have even been something they did. It might have been an unrealized expectation, but a hurt or a slight was perceived, and a line was drawn in the sand that said, I will never fall for that again. And that's where trust ended. I have found that the only response to that kind of pain and protectfulness is compassion and empathy. We've all been there. We've all been hurt, either by another or by our own unrealized needs and unmet expectations. It's not always rational, but it is always relatable. So how do we build or restore trust? Are we doomed to be stuck in the past, in disappointments, or in present aloofness? No, that's the good news, but it is going to take all of the skills that we have acquired so far. It's going to take the kind of faith that manifests as an unreserved opening of the mind to the truth, whatever it turns out to be. It's going to take alignment with ourselves, willing to do the work of self-reflection and maybe even change, as well as working on aligning with others through relationship building. It's going to take mutuality and reciprocity, giving and receiving grace. If that all sounds like way too much work and certainly too much to do alone, well, you're right, you shouldn't do it alone. We don't need to do it alone, because this is where our last letter comes in. H, harnessing hope. This is how I perceive the covenant that our spiritual forebears put into place when they arrived in a new land, determined to do things better and with more intention than before. They acknowledged that their knowledge was incomplete, that their truth was only partial, and that their love was uneven. And yet, they had hope that together they could create and pass on this new light that is ever breaking through individual hearts and minds to illumine not only ourselves, but the ways of humankind. Mutual strength, willing cooperation, and the bonds of love that keep open the gates of freedom. They said, therefore we pledge to walk together in ways of truth and affection as best we know them now or may learn them in days to come, that we and our children may be fulfilled, and that we may speak to the world with words and actions of peace and goodwill. If we are honest with each other, and even more scarily with ourselves, we will see that our knowledge is incomplete, our truth partial, our love certainly uneven. And if that were the end of it, there would be no hope to harness, no reason to continue on this path together, no resilience to manifest from the many slings and arrows that make up our days. Yet, with all our frailties, all our egos, our shattered dreams, we continue to believe that new light is ever waiting to break through human hearts and minds. We believe that change is possible. Mutual strength is multiplied through willing cooperation, and knowing that, trusting that, we pledge anew to journey together in ways of truth and affection. We renew our faith in one another, in ourselves, and in what James Luther Adams described as the ultimate source of existence, that sustaining and transforming power not made with human hands, that binds together people, families, generations. With our faith renewed, we go forward in the power of love, proclaiming the truth that makes us free. I hope you'll sing with me.